and welcome to Redbird Fans Forever. This is episode 4. And so I'd like to thank everybody. I have John and Steve, and we have our Proud Alumni joining us today, Patrick Smith Ray. So we'll be talking to him about Horton Fieldhouse. He's a huge fan. But before we hit that, we're going to remind everybody, hey, you can find us out on YouTube, right? Go out there, look for Bird Fans Forever. Find our podcast episodes. Love if you could click the like button or the subscribe button. Also, you can find the podcasts out for Apple and Google. We have a whole list out on the website. You can click out there and get those if you want to listen to it. So we're going to kick this on over to Jon Diener.
Okay, so I've known Pat probably for well over 30 years. Just wanted to, he's probably one of the biggest Redbird fans I know. And so I just thought why don't you stand up and show your outfit first here so we can see. Go ahead.
So this is of my own creation. Basically the idea behind this outfit is what would somebody from that was going to a game at McCormick in 1925, what would they look like? What would they wear? Little cartoonish, based on modern, like I issue patches from the 60s and from the 80s, but, Oh, yeah, let me get the hat. Oh, it just fell down. Sorry. Oh. But look, so, backwards. Okay. So, like, 1925, and actually, usually I tie the pennant on the wall up there, I usually tie to this, and kind of looks a little foppish from the 1920s era. And like I said, and Illinois State has, one of the things as a student I was always fascinated by was the continuum of the architecture of the basketball program, from Cook Hall, which originally, that stone face above the doorway used to just simply say gymnasium. In the 1920s, they replaced that to say Cook Hall when McCormick was opened, and that was opened for physical education, but also it was the first venue on the campus to be opened so that spectators could watch basketball.
Well, so why don't you go ahead and tell us how you became a Redbird fan before we start getting into architecture and stuff.
So I grew up in Peoria. I played basketball through junior high, and then played intramurals in high school. Ended up at Illinois State and played some intramurals there. But so my father went to graduate school at Bradley and was I know. Wait for the story to play out. So that's where I got introduced to Missouri Valley basketball. Okay, so I used to go to the old Robinson Memorial Fieldhouse and watch basketball. But then my sister, John's lovely wife, went to Illinois State, and she got on the Corfées, the pom-pom squad. She did that at the high school I went to, and anyway, got on that, and my parents were super excited about this. Division I school, she's on national TV now, playing, doing pom-poms, and so we got season tickets for both football and basketball. At this, I was like in 7th, 8th grade, and literally went to every home football and basketball game.
So they didn't buy season tickets to watch Jon Pemberton play?
They later I think they might admit to that, but initially they said. Now I would say that's why I was there to watch Jon, but but the impetus was we got to know Jon because my sister was on the pom pom squad. So anyway, so we I would go to class. I was in school, and after school I'd get picked up. We'd drive to Normal, and we would go to a basketball game, and they're on TV. It was just super cool. So I was just became infatuated. I became a Redbird fan at that point. as a pretty young kid. And somebody coming from Peoria, and especially at that time, like, Bradley basketball was pretty strong. Like, I know. I'm just saying the reality. Does Redbird basketball have to be to pull a kid out of all my friends? That's who they were, like, to pull me out of that. And I was like, no. This is my team. The Braves are now my team. I'm a Redbird. Like,
so let's talk architecture.
That's when you fell in love with Horton Fieldhouse, right?
Exactly. So Horton Fieldhouse. Oh my God. So architecturally, I guess how I would put this is, think about this in terms of baseball stadiums. Like, we all love the jewel box stadiums. So, and really, I mean, Wrigley and Fenway are the last of the jewel boxes. I mean, Tiger Stadium was a long holdout. Comiskey Field was a long holdout. But Horton Fieldhouse is what I would term, and if you go to an architecture school, they may not use the same terminology, but I would consider what's called an old barn. And there are many.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's many. I mean, just the style of the building. I mean, like, even from 1920 at Hinckley in Indianapolis at Butler, like, that's an old barn. Virginia Tech actually has. I think they're actually newer than Horton. I think that was like 65, something like that. Old barn. And so what I mean by that is, rather than having a building built in a circle with a lower bowl and an upper bowl and then outer concourses, okay, these buildings were built like airplane hangars or like a barn. So, and surprisingly enough is, I remember when I was a kid, I used to go into Robinson Memorial on Bradley's campus, and the actual stands go up on the curved side, not necessarily the long side. So it was just the most efficient way to put people in this building. And Horton, this is the thing, Horton is absolutely, I don't have any numbers to back this up, but I am willing to bet that Horton Fieldhouse is probably one of the most used buildings on the entire campus, and not just certainly with athletics. So, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is with the new indoor practice facility that's going to be built, which is great. And I think that with that building being built, that Horton has even more potential to do more and better things. All right, they put on a new roof in 2019. They redid the surface. Now the track in there is 200 meters, which by NCAA standards they usually use a 300 meter track now. But the gymnastics team uses it, and the basic, all of the solid infrastructure is still there. There is the lower, what would have been called the lower bowl of Horton was removable wooden retractable bleachers, right? Particularly on the north side, that were, oh my God, can you imagine? I mean, like that, it went to the roof on the north end of the field house. What I would like to see, just because of it is a legacy sports complex. And actually, I actually did, in preparation for this talk, I actually just Googled Fieldhouse, right? And a Wikipedia page comes up, and it describes what a fieldhouse is and how it's historically an American piece of architecture. But then it has a section of historical fieldhouses, and it does it by state. Sure enough, Horton Fieldhouse is on that list. I mean,
awesome.
It is and somebody, I feel like as an alum of Illinois State, I'm one of the last generations to have seen, and I didn't get to see that as a student, I was fortunate enough as a kid to have gone there and actually seen and heard how loud it was, and how, I mean, I just remember being gobsmacked, this is, and oh my, can we talk about, again, architecturally, those glass curtains, the north and south walls that are 3/4 glass, and then it's not until you get to the lower third that it's masonry structure, but brings in all of that natural light. That's a special building. I mean, absolutely 100% with basketball. No, you can't, it is a special place. If you think about the game, I was actually at the last game with
so was I.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I wasn't as sweaty as you, but I did see the last game there. But if you think back to the UNLV game, there's just actually 1972, the very first women's college national championship tournament was held in Horton Fieldhouse. This is before the NCAA recognized women's basketball, full court women's basketball, as
Jill Hutchinson.
Yeah, Jill Hutchinson, exactly. And actually, it's so funny. I was prepping for this conversation this week, and I got my alumni. I was gonna bring. I don't have it with me. They have an article. Just yesterday, I got the alumni magazine. I don't know if you guys have gotten it yet, but they have an article on that. I was like, oh my God, I've been thinking about this for the last 2 weeks, and sure enough, it shows up. But okay, think about other first in college athletics, like Will Robinson, the very first African American Division I coach. That's where he coached. All right, and of course, who did he coach? Doug Collins. I mean,
and we'll be talking to Randy Henry right after this. So he's our special guest this week, and Randy got to play a year under Robinson, and he had Coach Robinson recruit him out of a junior college out of Iowa. And so, I mean,
think about the history in that building and the architect. I mean, it clearly is what anybody would call an old barn. It just had, and when you walk into that building, one of my favorite things actually is going to a Redbirds football game. At halftime, they always have Horton open. And with my kids are getting a little bit. My youngest is now in 4th grade, but I used to take my kids there, and they would have a bouncy castle in there, and it's heated, it's climate controlled. How many Division I football stadiums have a climate controlled environment where you can put your imagination is the only limitation, is what could be done with that building.
Yeah. Right, Pat, this has been awesome.
Hey, John.
Thank you, guys.
John,
thank you.
Before we cut off and go to Randy, right? We got to make an announcement, right? The women's tennis team, right, won the Missouri Valley Conference, right? And the week before that, the women's golf team won the Missouri Valley Conference. And for keeping track of it, the women's basketball team won the Missouri Valley Conference, as well as the volleyball team. So the women now, I think there's eight
killing it.
Yeah. Eight sports where they've finished the tournaments. They've won 4. Softball and track are still to come. So
still competing.
But 4 out of the 8 teams have won the conference currently.
We're going to wrap up this segment. This week in Show and Tell, I have my freshman jersey. I actually have a second freshman jersey, and I was telling that is my Show and Tell. And Mr. Engineer, we are going to cut to break, so hit it. Hello and welcome back to Bird Fans Forever podcast, our new name. We have the legendary Randy Henry here, who played from 1973 to 1976. Hey, Randy, how you doing, big man?
I'm fantastic. How's everybody today?
Doing good.
Doing good. All right, so we're just going to jump into this because this is the Randy Henry show here. All right, I love to tease you about. I looked you up in the program because every time I talk to you, you tell us great stories, and I thought for sure you played more than 2 years, but you were only 2 years as number 42. What other number did you have?
I wore number 40 when I first got there, but that was only for about a couple of weeks. And then I told him I wanted 42 because that's the number I wore in college. I wore 22 in high school. But Connie Hawkins was my guy, and then Jackie Robinson, I wanted to wear 42. So that was the reason I got on 42. And so what happened, they changed it. But I did play 3 years. My first year, I played JV and varsity. So I did 15 games JV, 10 games varsity. 18 my second year, and then my senior year, I started all 27 games. We were 20-7. We were the worst team Smithson ever had. We were 20-7. We go 22 the next year. I think we won 23 or 24, and went to NIT 2 years. But we should have went in 75, 76 because it was the last year the NIT was all in New York, and we beat the Long Island Blackbirds in Long Island. And in that game, Jeff Wilkins, 7-footer on the team, he said, Rand, let's switch. So I was always the guy at the free throw line throwing it down to him. So the guy couldn't handle me. So Jeff goes to the high post. He's jumping to me. He gets 8 assists. I get 8 layups, He called it. He said, switch. And so he ran to the high post, and everybody's like, what is he out there? As soon as he got there, I would curl in, he chopped it, and the guy was guarding me was 6'5", and I'm 6'7", so I, layup after layup. I thought they would do something about it, but we beat them, and that was a very interesting game there in Long Island. But let me take you guys back to the start of the season. Here's where we go. So we knew about Billy Lewis, great player, Hall of Famer. We knew about Roger Powell, the Mad Bomber. This is Gene's first year. We knew Mike Bonds, who was one of the top 5 guards in the country. And one of the other guys was Skip Bond from Wake Forest. I'll tell you about that story later. And then we had, at the other 4, at the center rather, was Jeff Wilkins. So we had those 4 pieces. And so Coach was saying, who's that 5th guy? Who's the guy who's going to be in there that's going to help us out? So I start, we go 6-0. And he calls me in his office. He says, I need to talk to you. I said, Coach, what's wrong? I'm averaging 14 and 7. I'm doing my thing. He said, you got to start passing the ball more. I said, I didn't say that, but I'm saying to myself, we're 6-0, and we haven't lost a game. And so we had just come off the Bradley Invitational. We had beat Bradley because we were trying to get U of I and Northwestern to play Illinois State, Western, Bradley, but they wouldn't play us. We'd always try to get a game with them, but they wouldn't play us. So we had this little tournament, and we almost messed it up. We played Eastern and almost lost, and they played Western and almost lost. They had big money. They jumped in Jimmy Carruthers, and they had a guy named Roger Fagley who played with the Washington Bullets a couple years in the NBA. I think he had about 4 years in. So we go up there, and Billy Lewis goes off. He ended up being MVP. And I sent you that picture. I don't know if you have the team picture of that group. But we went up there, and we clowned them. So we're 6-0, and I'm thinking, like, things are going pretty good, like they figured out that we start, So he says, you have to pass more to Jeff, he said, because he's unhappy, you taking shots or what have you. He said, but if you throw it in there, he throws it back, you can shoot it. And so I averaged 12, but I took less shots than all the guys, all the starters except for Mike. And Bonds wasn't even trying to shoot the ball, but other 4, our league score was Billy, then Jeff, and Roger Powell, and I was number 4. But so after that conversation, we lose 3 in a row. We go out to Drake, we lose to Drake, and what happened there, we got our new uniforms. And so, new uniforms, I wish we'd have got them when we got back home. They bring the uniforms on, we're all looking at them, really nice, the MT, mental toughness, extra effort. So we get bombed by Drake. Then we go play Idaho State. And they got this clock from 1960 that turns red in the last minute. We lose on the guy just must have stopped operating it because those 10 seconds seemed like it was like 40. And we lose buzzer beater by 1. Then we play Washington State. The great coach George Raveling. And they had a kid from out of Chicago, Steve Padakis, 6'11". I'm guarding this guy, and I'm tying his legs up. I'm all on him. It was a bang play. We're down by 2. He drives. He plows me. So I'm falling all out like he killed me. They called a block. Fall out. He goes to the line and makes the 2. They go up 4. We miss. They come to score. Then we end up losing the game by 4. So now we lost 3 in a row, and I'm saying to myself, Coach, why am I passing so much? But anyway, that year we were 13-1 on the road. In the 2 prior years, Illinois State was 16-10, where we were 13-1. We only lost 3 games in my 3 years at Illinois State, 3 games at home. But on the road, we were disastrous. We were like 9 we lose 9 and win 3. But that year with us, my senior year, we were 7-6 on the road. We were 13-1, and we lose to Centenary with Robert Parrish.
Yeah.
He comes in.
That's the story we wanted to hear. Yep.
And so he's in there, and Jeff is battling, but he's swatting everybody. And we trying to finger roll on him, and he's swatting them left and right. But we battle him. We battle him. So at the very end of it, they go to him for 2 straight, and he ups and under. Jeff puts it in, scores, and we can't come up with anything in the last 40 seconds to get a bucket, and then we lose. And we lose to them by 4. And so I'm saying, like Robert Parrish, and they had a kid from Bloomington High School was coming up. I can't remember his name. 6'8" guy, and I was guarding him. And I tell you a story. Jerry Sloan was there the summer before at the basketball camp. And so he says, I told him, I said, I want to eat, it's a chance for me to start. I hadn't started any games at ISU. He says, well, you kind of light. 6'7", I'm 182. He said, but if you tie people's legs up, you'll be able to keep them off the board. So he's showing me how to tie their legs up. He says, I'm going to teach you something else. When everybody's looking up at the basket, every now and then run your hand up somebody's mouth, they'll bite their tongue. They can elbow, hit somebody in the groin. He said, now, the only bad part about that, they may come back at you. So they wait quick. But, a lot of times when people go up for a shot, I would take my hand and then just go right across their face, and they bite their tongue. So now they're looking to see what was I going to do next. And so, depending on how big the guy was, and I hit him, I was moving somewhere else. I could run into next week, so I was really fast, but I was not a strong guy. But he said a guy cannot jump without his legs. And so, Sloan had taught me that. So I'm battling this guy from Bloomington. He's 6'8", about 230. And I'm giving him work, man. I'm elbowing. He studied pushing. He's getting mad. But Robert Parrish gave us the most work. He just had long arms, and we're trying to drive on the thing. We could float it up a little bit higher, and every now and then. But then he had the ugly shot, like kind of a jerky thing, but he kept falling. So it was a great game, and it was Christmas time too. That we played him. So that was probably a game that we wish we could have gotten. In that, we look at the schedule, we were 20-7. I look at the Idaho game, we should have won. We could have won at Washington State. George Ravelin's there. He's working the referees, and we're at his place in Pullman, Washington. And this was New Year's. And so we lose that game. And so I'm like, our heads are down. But then we come home and we get a major run. One of I think my best game of the year we played at Oral Roberts.
That's the next game I wanted to hear. Yes.
I go in there, and Dwayne Fox, who was a former Redbird, left and went to Oral Roberts. He had graduated. Invites me over for dinner. He's from Inkster, Michigan, so we go over there. I have dinner with his wife, Dolly. We're having a good time. We're chilling. So when I go into this game, I'm feeling it. We're in the layup line, so I don't know if you ever played the Oral Roberts. But before the game starts, I don't know if they still do it, the people in the first 7-8 rows come out on the floor. So we're in the layup line, and it scares the shit.
It is creepy.
It's creepy because they all come on the floor to pray.
Creepy.
They come on the floor to pray. And so we're in the game, and, I'm doing my thing. We're working, but nobody else came to play that day. For some reason, I get 20-some points, 18 rebounds. I'm feeling it, but we lose. We get black. And so they started to boo us one time. Oral Roberts raised up out of the seat like this just a little bit. Everybody got started, silent, and then started cheering for us. So that was scary. But Oral Roberts, to tell you how the yin and yang of that, They come to our place. I play the first 3 minutes. I get 2 points. We win by 15. I've never gone back in the game. This guy, Richard Jones, who was my backup, had a tremendous game. He comes in. I'm like, I'm getting ready to sit down now. I ain't gonna play no more. But
so let me hit you.
And didn't do much, that game. And he was on the roll, and I'm cheering for him. Smithson always come back. Partner, don't worry about it. You'll be back in there next game. So that's where I was at.
Hey, Randy, give me a second here. So at Oral Roberts, 14 of 14 from the free throw line, right? As a big, in the 80s when I played, bigs that shot 70% of was unheard of, right? I mean, let alone you shooting 14 of 14 in that game, and you're in the record book for that one. You also pulled a double-double on that one, that 28 and 10, and I think you played Louisiana Tech right before it looks like, in the schedule. You went 23 points and 17 rebounds with Jeff Wilkins by your side. You must have just been a complete beast in that game.
No, here's the thing. When we played Louisiana, they were, real physical group, but what they weren't was fast. They were big guys, and so that was my thing. I was a finesse guy. Roll off, pressure, guy try to press me one way, I roll off, finger roll, put it in. George Gervin was one of my heroes. Now, you know about the Iceman.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
He was 6'9", maybe $185, maybe. But he always talked about, we played at a gym called St. Cecilia. Spencer Haywood, Magic Johnson, Danny Roundfield, Ralph, you name any great players from 69. It opened in 68, 69 to about 76. All the great players came in. And so Gervin would always say, man, just roll with the pressure, roll away from the pressure. So if they force you on this shoulder, roll the other way. And he was always rolling. So that was my thing, that like John Havlicek, I don't know if y'all know Havlicek from the Boston Celtics, continuously running. So if you was going to guard me, you better be in shape, because I was going to never stop running. And that's what Smithson liked about me most, is that I kept it moving. I wanted to stand, hit that wing, go make my cuts, run around, come out the other side, come on back out. And so against Louisiana, they were big, but they were slow. And so now I'm running past these guys, like they get the rebound, Jeff rebounds, man, I'm gone. And Mike Bonzi could find you. He's threading the needle, and I'm catching, laying it up. And so while they were plotting down, I was getting it. Now they were, trying to post me up because I was small. But again, I'm putting my knee between their legs and time, because I'm Jerry Sloan on my brain. They can't jump without their legs. Just tie them up, push them, give a little pressure, step away. Rick Mahorn was great at that. But, you apply a lot of pressure, pushing, and then when he gets ready to jab you back, just step back, the guy stumbles down, or you get a steal, keep it going like that. But the 14 free throws, we got 78%, for the year. And it wasn't a question. And I'll tell you about the Florida State game, which was critical. We won it at home by 2. And I made 4 out of 5 down the stretch to win the game for us. And they had a great team. We go down to Florida State. We froze them out. They came to ISU. You open up the back door, putting the bleachers in. It had to be like about maybe 10 degrees. They freeze. We go to Florida. They got us 102, man. I'm wringing wet in the layup line. We get blasted. Down there.
You guys were an independent back then, so then you weren't part of the Missouri Valley. So I think you actually played Florida State 3 times that year. Right.
And so, here's the thing. We were trying to get in Missouri Valley, and, Smithson was trying to get us in that group. And so, Bradley was trying to get in also at that time. But being an independent, unless you had a great superstar, we didn't really have. I mean, Billy Lewis was probably, and Rogers, he was a high school All-American. Billy was a high school All-American. Jeff was a junior college All-American. But I thought we had enough pieces that the NIT would take us. And we were 20-7. Long Island was 19-8, 19-9. So their record was worse than ours, and we beat them at their place. So we were quite disgusted, that we didn't get a chance to go. But that was the goal, to get to Missouri Valley, and you guys came in and just destroyed it and done some great things, and won the championship, went to the tournament, big dance. So I was excited. I mean, the year that ISU went 25 and something, and
Yeah.
lost to Wichita State in the championship game. I was real salty that they didn't take us that year, that they should have took 2 teams out of that. It was really
Agreed.
So, Randy, you mentioned all those great players. I mean, the one thing that sticks out is like you guys just put up so many points in a game. I mean, you went over 100 points against the D1. This wasn't like 100 points against D3 schools. This is 100 points on D1 schools.
Well, here's a great story. We go to Vegas. They got Easy Eddie Owens. They got Ricky Sobers, who played with the Phoenix Suns. They got a guy named Jackie Robinson. So we go down there. We score 125, and lost by 10. We scored 125. Will Robinson said, "Champ, when I score 125, I figure we're going to win." But we lost that game. And I'm talking about no defense was played. It was a running rebels. We running, they running. Bubba Hawkins is doing his thing. We up and down the floor. And we never can catch up with them. I mean, they were that fast. So the cool part was, when the game was over, guy Jackie Robinson, who's a millionaire now because he's into fast food, a lot of Kentucky Fried Chicken stores. He played in the NBA a couple of years, maybe a cup of coffee or something. But he invites me to Caesar's Palace where he parked cars. So he walks up, "Jackie, how'd y'all do tonight?" "We won, you know." "Oh, great. See, this guy's from Detroit. The Four Tops is in there singing. So he says, "You guys want to come in?" They take us in there, put us in this booth with real arch back, what have you. And we go there, we're eating free, we're drinking free, and I'm just like, man, this is great. We got our butt kicked. But there's still, Four Tops for free. You know, bingo. He stayed me back to the hotel, and we were friends ever since then. But, you know, Vegas, you score 125 points, you figure you got a shot to win. And you scored a score.
You scored 125 points and no three-point line.
And no three-point line. And lost by...
The three-point line won't come in for another 10 years.
I'm going to tell you, Roger Powell, I love Roger. They call him Roger Dodger, you know, the man.
Mm-hmm.
Easily, he'd have another 400 or 500 points because he always shot 3-point. The guy had big wrists, long hands, real top-heavy, strong head. He could palm it and go to the basket, lay it up. But on the fast break, he'd run to the corner. He'd run to the three-point line and hit, you know. And I'm saying, so if 3 was in, a lot of those games that we lost by 2 or 3, you know, we would have won. I mean, to be exact with you, the 7 losses, all of them were 8 or less. A couple of them were 4-point losses. So I'm saying 2 more wins in that first year. You know, we didn't have the national recognition. I mean, we had Doug, but it tanked because of the next 2 years. Even in Doug's senior year, they were 13 and 14. NIT was going to take them if they won their last game that year. And they ended up being 13 and 14, didn't go. So on Doug alone, if they'd have been 14 and 13, they'd have to be, you know, 500.
Right.
So with 16 and 10 those next 2 years, and can't get a win on the road, and then we get 20 and 7. I'm thinking like, man, we going. But we
that's the other thing. As being an independent, you guys had to play more home games than like teams now. So typically the non-conference schedule, they play a lot of home games, maybe two or 3 on the road, even ISU, right?
Right.
And then they split the conference. So back then, as an independent, you played more road games. Plus, to make the tournament, because you're not in a conference, much more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you have
difficult.
to have a strong record. And then, you know, a lot of people didn't want to come to us because in the year, we only lost 3 games at home. And then I think had we beat Centenary, that would have been a great win for us. They had a decent year. The Wake Forest story I have for you, we go to Wake Forest, and they're 5th in the country. And so we go in there, and they introduce the starting lineups. This was great. So they said, you know, Randy Henry. So they got everybody pulls out a newspaper, puts it up in front of their face. They call my name. You know, so we go on and we beat them by 4 at their place. And so when the game was over, you know, we had run around and Mike Montiel was on to get skipped. When I was driving at the very end, you know, clock was running out and the horn goes off, and I go and I slam dunk it. Listeners all on my ASS about that because they could have called a technical foul. Although we were up by 4, they wouldn't have probably put no time back on the clock. Game
because
you couldn't dunk the ball.
You couldn't dunk the ball. That's right.
We weren't allowed to dunk. So I was so freaking happy. I don't think I went to bed. They're fifth in the country. We beat them. I slam dunk it. He's on my ass, going to the locker room. And then we get in the locker room, everybody's hunting the door. I said, Coach, did the horn went off, this game over? No, miss, you can't be, and it's giving me a lot of crap about that. But we were so happy about that win. That was great for us. And I laughed because when the game was over, you could hear all those papers dropping to the floor. They're talking about, who's he? Everybody, who's he? And it was so sweet. I was laughing because that was kind of cool, that so they said Randy Henry and everybody throw these papers up. Who's he? And they were all in unison. They're going up and down. So that was a great game for us and a great victory for ISU. And they were, like I said, they were fifth in the country at the time.
Yeah, that was an awesome win. So we're going to wrap this with Steve and his question. Ready, Steve?
Yeah. Well, first of all, before a lot of great basketball stories, but we got to recognize you were inducted to the ISU Broadcast Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
Put the big ring up. Show us the ring.
Show everybody. Okay.
There it is. Okay.
There it is. Yep.
So they told you they're Bears fans, right? But I'm a Packers fan. Okay. And so my dad grew up in Michigan. My uncle grew up in Michigan. But the families are divided. So he ended up moving to Green Bay, and his daughters ended up being Packer fans. So he failed miserably there. But you know what the most important day, right? In Detroit.
Thanksgiving, baby.
Thanksgiving. So everything revolves around that Lions game, right? But there's one other event, right? On Thanksgiving,
baby, the parade.
So tell us about, because he knew. I was talking about, because I saw some background. He knows. Well, he doesn't know you, but he watched you. Okay, so he thought it was super cool that you're going to be on here. So tell us about hosting the Thanksgiving Day Parade.
The Thanksgiving Day Parade, I started as a producer with a great guy. His name is Chuck Gatica. He's our weather guy. Everybody loves Chuck, and building up to the parade, they always talked about the weather. So Chuck and I would go to a clown breakfast where people would pay $1,000 to be in the parade. And then we did what we call the TV zone. We interviewed about people setting up for the parade. So for 27 years, I was on Woodward Avenue with him, with this guy. They did a great article on me on the parade. But what happened was my job was to get him on and off floats. So one year Chuck said, well, come on up here with me. So now I'm on these floats. I'm waving like I'm a celebrity. And I'm here. I got a headset on. It's back to the truck. And they're saying, Randy, what are you doing up here? I said, I'm making sure nothing happens to Chuck. So I'm a gag that I met, Big Sean, I met Ruben Studdard, met Vanilla Ice, Vanilla, whatever.
Yeah.
Vanilla Ice, whatever. But I met so many celebrities. Little Richard, he was the general, he was the Grand Marshal one year. Magic Johnson was the Grand Marshal. So all these people I would meet because I had to get on and off these floats for 27 years. And so they did a real nice article in the Free Press here about last year, since I retired, I wouldn't be on what would I be doing? So I said, I'm going to be sitting with my grandbaby watching it on TV. But the parade is a big deal. And the Hall of Fame situation was, when I got the letter, I took it to my wife and I said, honey, read this for me. Because I'm in the Hall of Fame. And I called Laura, who's in charge of the communications department. She says, yep, we put you in the Hall of Fame. 39 years, in television. I started as a trainee for minorities, and the rest is history, as they say. I got that job out of 500 people, and my TV 10 background helped me with that. And I'm going to tell you how old I am. When we started at TV 10, we were doing film. Shoot it, develop it. Now you take a little bitty chip right here and throw it in the machine, and you can get about 4 hours on that. One-man bands. All the development, we went from 2-inch, 1-inch to beta to these little zip things, whatever we stick in there. But television has been really good to me. I worked at WDIV TV, Post Newsweek, Channel 4, and the game. I never went to a Thanksgiving Day game football.
Really?
We had to be there at 3 a.m.
Oh wow!
Chuck and I was cool, so he'd come with the limousine. They'd pick him up at his house. He'd come by the station. I'd be there and have to do a 5 to 6 show. He'd come pick me up, We'd be together until 12 noon. So I was up from 3 o'clock to 12 noon. So I wasn't ready for no football game. So I'd go home and watch it, and then that was my day. But maybe next year I'll go down to the game.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So this is a wrap for episode 4. Randy, thank you so much. I was talking to Gerard, and we want to thank you, right, for all the things those players did before and allowed us to stand on your shoulders to get into the Valley and get a shot at even having a shot to win the Valley Championship is because of what things like you did for the Illinois State Redbirds. And so with that, we are a wrap. Mr. Engineer, you want to take us out?